You're watching Leafs Morning Take with host Nick Alberga and former NHLer Jay Rosehill. The show starts now.
And away we go, day 2 of the Nashville Hangover presented by Bet365. It's time for the Tuesday edition of Leafs Morning Take. It is Nick Alberga and a recovering Carter Hutton. What's going on, Huts?
I don't know why I said yes to this show, Nick. I honestly should have given myself a week, buddy. When you're booking the schedule, I did not plan accordingly because I am still hurting, buddy. What a trip. Met tons of great people, tons of fun. Honestly, I would do it all over again, but I wouldn't have booked this show, buddy.
Yeah, that's fair. And tell you what, we gave out some trip MVPs on yesterday's show. And I won't lie, you were in my top 3, but I gave it to my guy, Marky Pendleton, the captain for my beer league hockey team, an absolute stud. Actually made it to hockey on Sunday and scored the lone goal in our 3-1 playoff loss. But you were certainly up there. You had a time, didn't you?
Yeah, I had a time. I was pretending like it was back in 2013 when I was playing for the Preds my first year. It was fun with friends there and stuff, right? We had spent so much time in Nashville. My one buddy there, Ryan, the big dude from Texas, he had his bachelor party there. So we're like walking down the strip and he's like, hey, remember we went here? And remember we did this? And we were trying to kick it like we still could, but it was fun. He is the MVP. If he went to hockey last night, Peds, and played and scored. I went to work out yesterday, Nick. I mentioned this earlier. I was a waste of space. Even this morning, I still feel hungover. Tomorrow, I'm going to be back. Tomorrow's got to be the day.
Yeah, you're going to feel rejuvenated. Maybe it's after watching a Maple Leafs victory against the Philadelphia Flyers. Our Super Chat charity partner this season is Sick Kids. Want to make sure that your question or comment gets on the show. Hit us up with a Super Chat. Proceeds from our Super Chat will go to Sick Kids, ranked the #1 research-intensive children's hospital in Canada and 3rd in the world. What was the highlight of the trip for you?
Oh, man. I think just for me personally, maybe it hit a little bit different because I played there for 3 years, right? I think just being in the building at Bridgestone, seeing the rink, reminiscing, meeting so many people too, I think was really fun. Like the connection with, obviously, with your show and being part of this and seeing the community grow is huge. And then for me, just the progression of Nashville. Obviously, the team hasn't progressed. It's been rough there in Nashville, but it was really cool to be in the building. I think to be on the other side of it was cool for me too, right? Like so many years I spent there, but watching the game and sharing it with like friends and stuff was really cool.
Yeah, you and Rosie are learning, right? Because you've always had that perspective of player. Now you have that perspective of media member and where that line is drawn. And sometimes you have to be hypercritical of a team, which you guys both have been over the last couple of years. And yeah, it was a fantastic rip, dude. We're already talking about next year's trip where 2.0 version of the nation vacation is going to be. Early front runners and include California, Vegas, and maybe even Florida.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. And honestly, it was a fun trip, right? I guess for me, it was cool to include people in the winery as well. Obviously, I have close ties there with the business and what we've grown and getting to show people around and explain how it works and just to see the other side of it. But it was really cool. And what an event, man. I thank you guys. I can't act like I did anything. I literally just showed up and got to have some fun and made a few connections along the way, to help out in that sense. But I feel like everyone did so much work to make this happen. It was really cool.
Shout out to our guy, Ty, Love and Exile Bar, for being a phenomenal host, and Waymore's, of course, again, for being just a great hotel close to the action. And yeah, Nashville's great. You can get pinned so quickly. You learn very, very quickly all 3 days. But yeah, it was all about the crowd for me, getting everybody together and just having one common interest. That is the Toronto Maple Leafs, right?
It was, yeah. We were buzzing around after the game, and obviously mixed emotions, right? Obviously a big win for the Preds at home. So the crowd was rocking, but the Leafs fans were in full tilt. And, it's just one of those games that's tough, right? It's like, you're in Nashville, the team is the shits, and it's hard to get up for that game. I think that's one you just throw in the trash and move on. But we had gone down the strip after, and we ended up in Jelly Roll's bar. And at one point, the women, they went upstairs to try to get a tattoo. So that's what our night had become on Saturday night. We were lined up in the tattoo line. It actually had shut down because I was like, thank God, who knows what I would end up getting. I'm not a tattoo guy, but it felt like at that point, everybody was in line for a tattoo in our group. So that's Nashville in a nutshell for you.
Yeah, you would probably get like a tramp stamp or something with Leafs Morning Take on the lower back. Like that's probably the play, dude. I was so pinned. I came to try to meet you there for the 3rd period. I went to the wrong section. There's a really unique story that comes with it that I can't say on the air. I'll tell you off the air, but it was hilarious. Nonetheless, we had an awesome time. We're getting set for the Scott Laughton revenge game. The Leafs back in action. Quickly, some commentary from the players the other day. Like, what did you think of the overall performance against Nashville?
You know what? Honestly, I felt like it was a game where they were dominant early. Like it almost felt a bit embarrassing watching, like the amount of chances they had and breakdowns in Nashville's end. And then I feel like they became victim of like playing down to your opponent. And I've seen this so many times, right? You have games where you call it a trap game or you call it what you want. The goal that gets called back on the high stick, I feel like swung the momentum a bit. And then all of a sudden you start to let off the gas. You get away from what makes you a good team. You think you're just going to play pond hockey and walk through it. And then Nashville starts to find a little bit of momentum. And the thing in the NHL, there is parity, right? I don't care how bad a team is. If they get going in the right direction and you're not on the ball playing your game, it'll fall apart quickly. And I think that's what we saw from the Toronto Maple Leafs, where early it came so easy and then it slipped away because you start to drift and cheat the game, and you can't cheat it because teams will make you pay.
You cannot. And speaking of cheating, I can't not bring up this story. Producer Vic just reminded me, and he's not here to defend himself, but we were walking to the rink after a couple, I forget what patio we were on, one of the patios there on Broadway, and Rosie was just shit talking. And he was talking about how he had to walk through the players' entrance back in the day. This is a bit different for him. And as he was boasting about that story, he walked right into a pole. Right into a pole. It was the funniest thing we'd ever seen in our life. But you know, Rosie, man, he's just, he's just like the life of the party, which makes Rosie the best. And I thought that was so hilarious. Thanks to producer Vic for bringing that up, because, man, it's just Rosie being Rosie, right?
Yeah, it's so funny too. And it's good to get to meet everyone in person, right? For me, I guess joining the show and being everything done digitally. So getting time to spend with you and Rosie, obviously, and then Vic and Zach and all the people I've met along the way have been so good to me. It was fun. But Rosie is one of those guys. He does remind me of like the fighters I played with, guys that are just like absolute, like they are teddy bears, good dudes, like fun, loving personality. But when those wires cross, man, look out. And it's one of those guys, very unassuming. He's a tank of a man. So it was obviously good getting to know him. But this poll story, I really enjoyed hearing that one.
Yeah, it was something special. I completely forgot about it. There was just so much that happened over the weekend that easy to forget about that story. Nevertheless, we transitioned. The Leafs signing another college free agent named Luke Hames. Played at Dartmouth, 21 years old, 22 this summer, billed at 6'1", 203. By the way, very thankful to Stephen Ellis, prospect analyst for Daily Faceoff, made a video for us. You can check that out right now on our YouTube page at the Leafs Nation 401. I'll be honest, when the Leafs sign free agents like this, I defer. Don't know much about the guy, but Stephen did give me a couple of Cole's notes and the video, so make sure you check out the video. But he did say scouts call him the best NCAA prospect of the group. Great shot. Missed time due to an injury, but looked great coming out of it. Probably just a quadruple A kind of guy at best, like Alex Steves. If you're going to target anyone this year, he's one of the best. You can't forget as well, they traded Fraser Minton, so maybe the team lacked a bit of center depth. But him and Quillen, I mean, they'll fight and they'll try to be guys that are mainstays in the bottom six there moving forward.
Yeah, and that's the main thing too, right? I think additions, you never know what can possibly come from it, but you got to bet on guys, right? And I just think sometimes the college route, they haven't really played that pro style of game yet, right? Guys coming out of major junior, played a lot more games where these guys are going to be bigger, stronger. We look what Bobby McManus done in his career. Mm-hmm. We see it all the time now. These guys are well groomed, so it's an easy bet. It's cheap money now, especially with the way that the cap works and signing bonuses. You don't really have to spend a ton of money to take a chance on a guy, which just adding guys to the cupboard that down the road could pay off, I think is important for this Leafs team. It's obviously calculated, but that being said, you need depth. You always need depth. We see injuries all the time and guys step into play.
Yeah, and we saw as well the deal comes into effect actually next season, signing an amateur tryout for the rest of this season with the Toronto Marlies. So we'll see if we hear from Luke Hames down the road here for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Of course, you would think he'd be in camp, but who knows how truly close he is to being a National Hockey Leaguer. But nevertheless, as mentioned, if he's built the top NCAA free agent, I'm going to buy it, quite frankly. Speaking of which, we got Zach Phillips, tonight's edition of Leafs Nation After Dark, following the Leafs and Flyers. Should be a good one. Zach, did a great job down in Nashville. Have to feel for the guy. He had to bolt right after the game. Probably had a couple pops himself. Did the post-game show. Nailed out of the park. I thought it was cool to do the post-game show at Love and Exile bar after the Rangers game. But Zach did a tremendous job. So make sure you tune in for that tonight. And we got not one but two guests today. Very Flyers heavy. As you reminded me off the top of the show, you played one game for the Philadelphia Flyers, right?
I did, actually. My rookie card, I can't believe I'm telling everybody this. My rookie card is San Jose because that was the first pro team I played for. But in the photo, I'm wearing a Flyers jersey, right? And I have my college gear. So the card is for the Sharks. I'm on the Flyers, and I have my college gear. So I'm just an absolute suitcase. So I finished college. I never got any deals. I was like unsure. My agent couldn't get me anything. So I switched agents. I joined Jordan Newman in Edge Sports, who ended up being my agent for my whole career. He calls me right away. This is when my previous guy couldn't get me a job. So he's like, hey, you can go play in the American League like this weekend kind of thing right away. So my buddies drove me down to Hartford. I started my first game. I put my suit on in the parking lot, carried my bag in, and played 4 games, bounced around. I would only play weekends because I was on an ATO. And then after my 4th game, I had played very well, and the Flyers, a goalie got hurt, and they called me up to back up a game with Brian Boucher. So I got a chance to back up, got to know Hartnell. Well, not really know him, I guess. I was just a fly on the wall, but it was a really crazy experience. Next day, I'm right back in school. So, and the next thing you know, I signed with San Jose. So that was my Flyers experience. 1 game in the show, backing up.
Full transparency, I tried to get Boosh on the show yesterday. He said yes, but he was driving today, so he couldn't come on the YouTube version. But down the road, remind me, I'll get Boosh on the show because that's a cool little story and nugget right there. But nevertheless, Scott Hartnell's coming up, as Hutz just mentioned, in about 20. And then we have Flyers superfan, American actor David Boreanaz is going to drop by in about 35 minutes. And that's a really good trivia question for somebody who bleeds orange. Carter Hutton. Do you remember the Carter Hutton era? That's the first question I'm asking him, I think.
I know I have a pretty good story about like the jersey. I might save it for Hartnell. Ask him a cool question about, see if he remembers. Cause I got a few fond memories of being in Philly. I know it was only for about 24 hours, but it was my first thing. There it is. Look at that loser. Hot rookies. Flyers, UMass, lol. They're not talking about my style when they say hot rookies.
Wow, that's just like a bit of everything. Your jock strap's probably different too. Like,
oh man, I was pieced together. And I have the cat eye cage too. Just looking like an absolute amateur.
It's just amazing to hear some stories how people got to the National League, and yours is no different there. And just quite the picture that you can commemorate and think about here on Leafs Morning Take at the Leafs Nation 401 on YouTube. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button, Leafs Morning Take, wherever you find your podcast. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review. And don't forget to visit theleafsnation.com. Once again, make sure you go to our YouTube page right now at the Leafs Nation 401, or maybe even directly following the show. And check out the really, really good explanation and breakdown examination as well from Stephen Ellis of Daily Faceoff on the new free agent signing for the Maple Leafs, Luke Hames. We look forward to Leafs and Flyers, and it looks like Pontus Holmberg will be a healthy scratch for the Maple Leafs tonight. The Scott Laughton revenge game. We thought he scored on Saturday against Nashville.
Yeah, that was tough. I felt for him. You know, it's one of those ones you wanted, but it was clearly a high stick. And I think for him, maybe some little extra energy tonight, something to get going and send a message. I know he's trying to find his game where he's at, but with that being said, I believe I brought it up on our show live at the winery, like, we're really going to judge Scott Laughton by what he does in the playoffs, right? I feel like he's going to have to be a guy that has a lot of energy that can create, but at some point he has to put himself in a good situation to get a better opportunity to play well. And he needs to do that. And I think maybe going back to the Flyers tonight and having that motivation to prove them wrong, that they let the wrong guy go, is going to be a little bit for him to light a fire under himself, Nick.
This is really good. Scott Laughton saw members of the Flyers last night as he is staying at the same hotel as the team. This via David Alter on Twitter. I got a room pretty close to Torts, he says with a smile. That's pretty damn good. But maybe, you know, who knows? And maybe I'm grasping at nothing here, but maybe it's a little familiarity that he needs to get cooking here, because he hasn't been able to find his identity. I think he's just been guilty of trying to do too much with his hometown team so far.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's tough too, right? Like, you want to go in and contribute and you want to do a lot. And I felt like I felt this way lots in my career, right? You'd go into a big game, or you'd get, you know, I signed with a new team and you're trying to do so much, but that's just not the way it works, right? You can't just like change who you are just because you want it more. You have to stay in your lane and chip away at it. And I think it will come over time. He's a really good player. It's a tough transition. It's a hard market to come to. Not that he's not used to tough markets coming from Philly, but for Scott Laughton, I think, you know, being a hometown team, playing for the Leafs, the pressure that they're under, the expectations, it can be a bit daunting at times. And I think when he starts to really settle in, he will help this team. It's just that he has to stay in his role to help the team. He can't overextend. He's not going to become a better player than he was. He just has to be slotted well. And I think he needs to find himself here.
Financially, I think it's been a crippling last couple of weeks for Scott Laughton. Not only do you have to pay extra tickets for your close by family from Oakville, Ontario to come to the game, but now you got to put money on the board for this one, right?
Yeah, I feel Scott, after a trip to Nashville was crippling financially as well. The price of the Canadian dollar here, but no, yeah, it is. It's one of those things that comes with the territory. He'll be okay, and I always love the money on the board, right? Every time that I played somewhere against a team I didn't know, it was the worst for me because I'd played on so many teams, right? If someone actually knew my career, so I had I had Chicago, San Jose, Philly, St. Louis. If I'm playing in Buffalo, it's like I got 5 teams I got to pay here, so this is a pain in the butt.
Yeah, I mean, just go to Carter's Hockey DB and you'll find out where this guy has played. We have to do one of these Leafs Nation vacations where everybody wears a different Carter Hutton jersey. We were talking about with Rosie. I'd love like a Manchester Rosie jersey and wear it on the road. And I did mention I was going to wear a Jay Rosehill Leafs jersey on this trip, and he forgot it at home. So there goes that. I wore my Sundin jersey, which is still unreal too.
Yeah, I know. I did see your jersey. It was nice. It would be funny to do the jersey. It'd be funnier to do the minor leaguers, like the leagues we played in before. Like I played on the Toledo Walleye. I had a hilarious one. I remember I played for the Rockford Ice Hogs, and we used to do like, I don't know, it's like Mexican national night, and it was like a hog, and he'd have 2 maracas with his. Like I've had some funny jerseys over my career, man. Like some really, really funny jerseys.
The traveling Huttons. That's what I want to do. And I was even bringing this up on our trip. Like, do you think there's like hardcore AHL fans there that like travel with the team and watch the team? There's like Tony in Liberty Village who's just like diehard Marlies. Do you see that?
Yeah, there was crazy amounts of fans. And I really noticed it when I remember playing in Toledo. My dad always tells this story. We were in Toledo and it was shirt off your back night, right? So you'd go and it was like a themed night, right?
Yeah.
And my dad's like, oh, this is really cool. I forget what the jersey was when I was in Toledo. He's like, well, I'll bid on it, right? He's like, had a few beers. He's like, that'd be cool to win. It's like 200, 400, 800, 1,500, $2,000 for like this, like my dad's like, his bidding stopped at like $300. He thought he was going to get it for 250. And the same thing in Rockford. I remember 2 jerseys went to this one lady. She spent like over $4 or $5 grand on 2 theme night jerseys, which was wild to me, but there is a big following, and especially in those minor league teams.
Apparently so. Dyslexic writes in, Hutton was passed around more than a high school prom queen.
Oh, nice. That's okay. Yeah. That's a compliment. That's it. I just had to go where my services were, Putty. I knew my role. I was smart. I was even saying that to a few people in Nashville when I was there, and they were talking about it. And I was like, well, once Saros came, the writing was on the wall for me, right? So I had to go on. I always joke that I was like the independent contractor where teams wanted my services because I was reliable. And nobody knew, like, everyone knew that, like, who I was, right? It's like, you knew what you're going to get. I was low maintenance. I wasn't going to mess with anybody. And then every team I played on, it was like the next goalie was going to be awesome. And so many teams I got like pushed out of, that next goalie never became anything, right? So for me, once you have a seat at the table, it's really hard to lose it as long as you don't mess up too bad.
Yeah, and it's funny. I told you this story after I started working with you, but I was very critical of Buffalo's signing of Carter Hutton in free agency. I said, where is this team headed? And we're still having that question 15 years ago, but it's been a delight working with you, I'll tell you.
Yeah, well, thanks. I know. Trust me. I was wondering what they were doing to signing me, but I wasn't going to say no when I saw
it. Was it one of those calls you're like, wait, your agent calls you, he's like, hey, Buffalo wants to sign you. You're like, wait, how much? Where do I sign? Was it that quick?
It wasn't, honestly, that one. You know what? I had so much leverage because I had a lot of teams at that point, and I had been through it. So I was like in a good spot, I think. My first deal that I ever got with Nashville, that's exactly what happened. Nashville flew me down. So I played one NHL game. I was a minor leaguer. They flew me to Nashville, toured me around. Like I walked in the rink and they had like welcome Carter Hutton on the jumper. They had a Hutton jersey hanging in a stall. They had a video. I went in the video room. They showed me a video, and I was like texting my agent, like, they got the wrong guy, man. Like, and then I met with David Boreanaz, and he goes, whatever, they have the meeting. And then after, right away, my agent calls me. They just offered you a contract for $550. Like it was league minimum at the time. And then it was a 2-way deal. It was like 300 in the minors or something. I was like, sign the deal. Like, how do I sign this? I would have played for free. It was crazy to me that I had like so much leverage and they were so excited about getting me, where meanwhile I had been riding the bus for 3 years in the minors.
Yeah, it really is an amazing story when you look into it. But I vividly remember the time you turned into a Buffalo Sabre. That was coming off a strong season with the Blues, right?
Yeah, strong in the sense I led in goals against and save percentage in the NHL. So not
yeah.
Baby.
Okay, tell me how you really feel. But yeah, that's I like those kind of stories, and it's perfect. We bring that up because Jacob Chikrin, perfect example of that, gets traded to the Washington Capitals. Talk about rebuilding your value, dude. He got 8 years, $9 million. My math sucks. That's $72 million, where this was a guy floundering, couldn't find his way with the Ottawa Senators, change of scenery, buddies with Ovechkin. He's wearing the old Kappa bra strap, and all of a sudden he is one very rich dude, but great on him. He's been awesome this year.
He has been really good. He's scoring, and one of those guys that like fought off injury a ton, right? He's been healthy, and it's like kind of the Capitals have this like sweet spot of like some misfits. You know what I mean? You look at Chikrin, you look at Pierre-Luc Dubois, even for that matter, Rasmus Sandin has been very good there, right?
Yeah.
I know it's you seeing him move on, see what he did in Toronto. They've got some things. They have something working, especially for a team we really didn't think was going to be able to be as good as they were this year, right? I think I credit Spencer Carberry a lot with what he's done. With that being said, I don't believe too many people predicted this team would be as good as they are this year.
Definitely. X still writes in via obviously YouTube at the Leafs Nation 401. Carter Hutton stat line: 234 career games, 2.76, 908 save percentage. I'm not kidding. You can come out of retirement right now and back up Andre Vasilevsky.
Yeah, 908 is pretty good, especially comparable to what is going on.
Exactly.
Honestly, I got hurt. I think my career, not that I want to say like I was going to play much longer, but when I hurt my ankle in Buffalo and Gauthier landed on me, we were playing the Rangers, I had to get surgery. After that, that year in Arizona, I was a mess. I couldn't do it, but there is value in guys that can just play well, right? You see it all the time. You see Reimer hangs around. Jake Allen's going to continually get contracts, right? Because there's so much value in just being a steady guy that's like predictable. There's always weight on the guy that's going to make all the money, right? And I think there's so much value in those guys that, are the mid-range starters. You look at Stolarz. What Stolarz done this year, he's literally just extended his career so long. Like if he would have had 2 bad years, it would have been tough to look for a job. But you have a run like this, you just get instant credibility, and that's so important in a game where we like to reuse guys a lot.
You're right. It would have been curtains for Anthony Stolarz at some point in time, but the way he's played this season, he's probably put himself in position to get a contract extension this summer by the Maple Leafs. And for a pretty penny, if you look around the league, Mackenzie Blackwood and others have all signed contracts the last little while. When it comes to the crease, Stolarz in a really good position. Unsurprising, it looks like he's going to start this game against Philadelphia. Right decision?
Yeah, makes sense, right? You got to go to him here. Because again, I don't think there is like a guy that is your playoff guy, right? I think right now it's just bouncing back and forth between the two of them, making sure that they're both ready to go. And again, I still think with two guys that are injury prone, right, that have missed time this year, and with Wool's history come playoff time, you got to make sure he's ready to rock at the right time. Again, I still think anyone can grab the crease and run, but I will stand by what I've said, and I will continue to say it. I think Wool is the guy that has more upside. I think he is a guy that just can steal games and be a total difference maker down the stretch. And not to say anything against Anthony Stolarz, they both really haven't been in a crazy amount of playoff games. I think Joseph Woll's played in bigger moments, right? Like obviously Stolarz got a chance to play in the Cup final, but that was coming off the bench. So for me, it's more just being strategic down the stretch and making sure both guys are ready to rock. So then if someone does open first game of the playoffs and he plays bad, you have the other guy ready to rock right away.
It's true. Another great quote from Scott Laughton. Maybe he's going free and easy into this matchup against his former team. It's going to be different looking at the pre-scout, and I was in some of the clips.
Yeah. That is funny. That's actually reminds me of a story when I first went to St. Louis from Nashville. I had played, St. Louis a ton, just being in the Central Division with the Preds for 3 years. And we go to overtime. It's my first game in overtime against, I was on St. Louis. I forget who we were playing at the time. And they're showing like clips of OT clips, getting the crowd pumped up. And it's Alex Steen coming in and scoring on me in overtime. But I'm like on the Blues now. I was like, you mind cutting that clip? I don't think this is good for my mental health, watching me get scored on in overtime as I'm getting ready to play in overtime.
It dawned on me last night. I think it would be hilarious to have like former players on the show when you're on and they dissect a goal they scored on you. Like I was going to look up a Hartnell goal on you.
That would be good. I would like that. I used to do the show in, it was called 0 to 60 in St. Louis, just like a fun little thing in the team. And it was with Ryan Reeves. And he was the host of it. And then I kind of took over, and he's like, he has his laptop with him and he's talking about scoring a goal on me. And I'm like, you've never scored a goal on me. And then he actually has the clip of him scoring on me, and he breaks it down. It was pretty good. So, I don't hope no one looks it up because it was I was screened. It got tipped, trying to make up excuses, but it went straight.
Yeah.
Oh,
there's always excuses from the goalies, man. Goalies being goalies. If they're not making excuses, they're getting hurt. Dude, your boy Peter Mrazek went down again last night. I couldn't believe it. Like, that guy cannot stay in the fucking crease. It drives me insane.
I know. He went down quicker than when I punched him out. We got to get Rosie on that fight tape. We got to get Rosie to give me some respect. He hadn't seen it yet. So I don't know if he'd fear me, but at least be like, know that I'm not a total wimp goalie.
One day when you and Mrazek are both retired, of course you are already, we're going to have a sit down, you, Peter Mrazek, and we're going to break down that scrap. But that's all I could think about last night. Mrazek down again. Like, he's the big pickup for Detroit at the deadline to solidify their crease potentially. And of course he gets hurt. But the crease, how would you deploy it this week? So you got Philly tonight, then a 3-game road trip into California, Thursday, San Jose, Saturday, Kings, Sunday, Anaheim. How are you playing your goalies?
Well, I guess maybe tonight, how tonight goes is important too. You know what I mean? You look at their schedule, you look at because that seems to be what they're doing, right? So you're obviously going to go, I think you go with the Sharks. The first game is Wool, right? And then from there, against the Kings, because it's back-to-back, I think you want to have whoever you think is your guy goes against the Kings, right? Because that's your big matchup in the sense of, the team you're going to play. But again, I think we just see 2 and 2 here. You see Stolarz for 2, you see Wool for 2. I think it just stays in that pattern until if anyone really starts to identify themselves as being the guy as we go down the stretch.
This interview is brought to you by our friends over at Greta Bar. Whether it's before, during, or after the game, it's the place to be on King Street West. Awesome street food and wicked arcade games. 590 King Street West, Greta Bar. Let the games begin. Yes, 1 of 2 on today's show as we get set for this Leafs and Flyers game. It's former Flyer, former hater as well of Dion Phaneuf, and now a TV color analyst and breaking things down with the Flyers and also the NHL as well. It is Scotty Hartnell. What's going on, Scott?
Not much, guys. How are you doing?
Feeling good. Huts has a great story. I forgot that Huts backed up 1 game in Philadelphia, Huts. So why don't you share that story first?
Yeah, Hartsy. I don't know if you remember that, but I got called up one time. I was emergency backup, and we were playing the Devils, and I was backing up for Boucher. And I remember I ended up going out that night. Me and Billy Lano were in a hotel. So they brought me out. We went to some little pub in Philly, and I was like just a fly on the wall, right? I was fresh out of school. I had no clue what I was doing. And by the end of the night, you had me behind the bar just getting my own beers. Like, I would walk over, get my own beers. And to boot, it was fan appreciation night. And we did shirt off your back. So they line us up on the line. Like, they bring out all the fans. And we had like you, Gagne, Giroux, Pronger, like all these legends. Every fan's winning like a cool Flyers jersey. And this poor sucker, this old guy, flips open his envelope and he's got Carter Hutton and he's got to come over. I'm like, I get this guy's jersey.
Hey, it's a National Hockey League jersey. You can't be mad at that. And then I just wanted to show you that you're in the National League. You can do basically whatever you want. Right?
Very well said. So we're getting set for this Leafs Flyers game. How you feeling about this one? Obviously, it's been a tough second half here for the Flyers.
Yeah, it's kind of the highs and lows of the Flyers and many other teams too, right? They come out of the 4 Nations break, they win like 5 in a row, and a few games over 500. You're like, oh, and then the trade deadline happens, and they lose Kuzmenko. Scotty Laughton goes to the Leafs. They trade Frost and Farabee a month before that. It's like, you lose these key pieces to the room, and they haven't recovered. It's a different room now. I feel like there's not much, talk and liveliness, fooling around, stuff like that before the game to keep guys loose. Lottie was a big part of that. And now they're 1-10 and, 6 or 7 games below 500, almost at the bottom of the Eastern Conference. Power plays just going down 0 for 31, I believe, since the start of March. So, you add all those things up. You're giving up 7 against the Chicago Blackhawks. You can't stop a puck. It's going downhill here for the Flyers, unfortunately. And they're in the midst of this rebuild. And, hopefully it ends up being a high draft pick and they can kind of make some strides in the next couple of years.
Yeah, and start chipping away, right? Laughton is a guy that I think he made a good point about just keeping the room light. And there's so much value in like being a good room guy and like having a team. You played with him early in his career. Like, what do you take away from him? What kind of guy was he? What kind of player?
He was great. Yeah. He lived in my house during training camp when he was 18. He didn't make the team that year. He went back to junior, but he got he was kind of one of those guys that I gravitated to, When I was 27 years old, he was an 18-year-old kid. I'm like, this guy's a really, really good kid, and he's going to have a good career. And he's been up and down the lineup, his whole career, second line, power play, penalty kills with the best of them. And, I know it hasn't been the best start for him in Toronto. You grow up being a Leafs fan, and you're there, in the middle of this playoff push here, and the bright lights of all the media and new guys. I know he knows Craig Berube really well from Philadelphia here, but it seems like he's just a little hesitant, I think, out there. He's like kind of watching instead of, just reacting and going and killing plays like he's done his whole career. So, I think, when you get traded too, you look at the team that you just played for 12 years. It's, 8 games away, now it's here today. So there's going to be a lot. He's an emotional guy too. Love the guy. So for him to probably get this game over with, playing the Flyers, his old team, this is going to be, hopefully a turning point for him and the Leafs to get him going and make a real run here the last 10 games or so.
It's almost like he cares too much, if that makes sense. And everything you just illustrated, the fact that it's his hometown team, he's from nearby Oakville. But I also believe in what you're saying, that I think this will help to get this game out of the way and play your former team. But when Scott Laughton is on top of his game, what is he doing right?
Yeah, he's a great centerman. He's always in great position. He's got some sick hands on him too. He scores some nasty goals, a great shot. And I think he does bring, value to a room, right? I'm not sure of the room, in Toronto. I don't really know many guys. My agent, they have Matthew Nyes. He's been a heck of a player here for you guys. I think he's, one of 3 guys, I think, with 125 hits and 25 goals. And the other 2 are Matthew Tkachuk and Tom Wilson. So he's in some pretty awesome company there. But as for the room, I don't know, how he fits in yet. And it's a learning out process too, right? And you hope it just kind of clicks naturally right away. But, for Lottie's, getting his feet wet there with the guys, and hopefully it turns the corner for him and the team too.
Yeah, and obviously there's some familiarity there with Craig Berube, right? A guy you played for, a guy I got to know. He was my assistant in St. Louis. Like, what way does he run his teams? Like, because we've seen a big difference in the way the Leafs have played this year under Craig, and we know he's a demanding guy. But like, what's your perspective of the way that Craig Berube runs a team?
He's no nonsense. He's a funny guy. He's got the driest sense of humor. I think you guys see it, with the media where, he'll make a lighthearted comment, at a stupid question asked to him right away. Guys around the room, he'll chirp guys, right? Just his career, you respect what he's saying and how he's running things. So I think they've been a lot more defensive, reliable, in their own end. The structure's been there this year, and I think that's going to help, come playoff time, where you need to have that structure to rely on instead of just kind of running and gunning. So, and then, but just how he treats the guys, he's not like a Torts where he's going to, rip you up and down, but he's going to hold you responsible for how you've been playing and all that kind of stuff, which guys need, but probably in more of a lighthearted kind of funny way. Just, he does, one of the funniest things he'd always say to us, he's like, you're skating on the forecheck, you're skating 200 feet, you dump it in the corner there, you're going after the D-man, and you skate so hard, and then you blow snow on him, and you go boop, with your hip, you just like barely touch him, and you're just like, oh my God, that's pretty funny what he just said. So gets a good laugh from guys like that when he's telling those fun stories.
Loves his north-south hockey, and should reference as well, the Leafs coming off a bit of a shit show on Saturday at a place as well in Nashville, where they're up 2-love. Laughton scores 3-0. They call it back to a high stick, and then the Preds score 5 unanswered. So the Leafs come back home, and Berube rips into the team at practice, stops practice. Is that a card that coaches can only use so much? And Craig Berube, is that something he did a lot?
Yeah, not a lot, that's for sure. But when when he's snapping and when he's calling guys out, calling the effort out of the team, that's when you know that you got to have a little wake up call. Snapping the fingers in your face, splash some water in your face, and just to kind of recheck everyone to be like, hey, we're the Toronto Maple Leafs. We're a good stinking hockey team. We got to play the right way. We can't kind of cruise through games and win with our skill. You got to grind it out. You got to play the right way, and I think when it gets away from that a little bit, Chief does a great job of reeling guys in for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's any veteran guy, right? Obviously, Hartsey, you played around, like you played for so many teams. Had a long career. You've been around. When you look at this Toronto team and this core, obviously they get a lot of noise, right? There's, Mitch Marner's contract and what's going on with Matthews. Do you see this team being able to get over the hump, right? They've added a few guys. They put Carlo on the back end. They're getting good goaltending this year. What do you potentially see from this Toronto team come playoff time? Because I think that's the main worry in the land of hockey here.
Yeah, I want to, I think correct me if I'm wrong, but the last couple of years, they've kind of been in that 2-3 spot, right? So they know who they're playing, and this year they have a chance to get that number 1 spot. So, try and finish as high as possible. That means you're playing, these games that actually mean something. You want to get that first round, so you're not playing a Tampa or a Florida, right? Probably Tampa. So you're playing maybe a little bit easier of a team. The Sens, I know they've been playing hot, but that would be a cool matchup, Toronto and the Sens. So, but it doesn't really matter who you play. You got to beat a good team, but to play those games to kind of, here's our goal right now, 10 games left. Let's shoot for the moon right here. Let's beat these teams in the Atlantic, get the first round, whatever it is, and make things happen that way. So have that goal, try and achieve that thing, and then just keep on rolling in playoffs. So I'm cheering. Lottie's one of the good guys. Scott Laughton is one of the good guys in the NHL, and so I'm hoping for him to make a big run here this year.
Yeah, that seems to be the consensus. Anybody I've spoken to, even Rosie, who played with him in Philadelphia as well, just talks to the world about this. Yeah, he says hi, by the way, man. What do you remember about him?
Oh, he's one of the funniest teammates, man. He was, talking about keeping things light, when you're at the rink or in a grind or whatever, and then when he steps on the ice, he's a different animal, man. But had some great times with him in the summertime out in the Okanagan as well, and always one of those guys where he talks, you immediately have a smile on your face, which is awesome.
Yeah, I was kind of sandwiched in between you in Nashville my 3 years there. You were there before. I got a chance. We were down in Nashville this weekend, so I got to catch up with Pete Rogers, Walker, Partner. I got to see Partner. I know Partner was your boy, but Callie Yarncroc. You got a chance to play with Callie Yarncroc. I spent 3 years with him, and I'm always like raving about how good he is as a Swiss Army knife, his skill level. Again, just trying to break it down for Leafs fans. Like, what does this guy bring? Because he's one of those guys that I feel like everyone's always wanting a bit more in Toronto.
He's so probably his best attribute for me is he's so competitive, right? He battles on the faceoffs. He wants to be first on the pucks, on forechecks. Very, very responsible in his defensive zone. He's got a heck of a shot. He's just one of those guys that it's not. I'm trying to think here, who like a Brad Marchand, like one of those guys, elite guys, but he's just a step below him, but does everything really, really well. Penalty kills, all that kind of stuff. And I played with him probably a bunch of games there, actually. And it's just like, I love giving him the puck because I knew he was going to go to the net. That's where I always was, right? So I knew he was going to have a chance to score, me screen for him, me get some tips, all that kind of stuff. So I really liked playing with him because he has the skill to make those plays in tight as well. And just a really great guy too. And a little known fact, he probably knows every single word of a Garth Brooks concert. We went to Garth Brooks concert and he knew every stinking word for a guy from Sweden. I was like, holy man, you know more than me. I loved Garth Brooks growing up. So.
Wow, that's sick. I would never put country music and Sweden together. And should just wrap by saying we were over down in Nashville this past weekend, Rosie, Hutz, and I, and we're still feeling it. Lower Broadway always gets you, eh?
Yeah, no doubt.
All right, Hartsey, thank you so much for your time today and enjoy it tonight, okay?
All right, cheers, guys. I'm not sure if I'm cheering for Leafs or Flyers for a better draft lottery or for Lottie to get a goal and get going. So
we'll see what happens. See you, bud.
All right. See you guys. Bye. Bye.
Scott Hartnell, one of the most candid people you'll find in hockey, breaking things down for us. And yeah, that's got a weird feel for that fan base, right? Because of what they've put together the last couple of years. And I got to wonder about John Tortorella and Torts and that shelf life as well.
Yeah, he is a coach that is so high demand at times, it like wears out a room. Yes, I believe in sometimes his message and what he's doing, but I felt similar to the way that I felt with Peter Laviolette when he kind of wore out his time in Nashville. It's like every single game he's on you, like full tilt, like you're going to war. It's the biggest game. We got to do this. And at points in an 82-game season with professional athletes in the NHL, you kind of start to lose the room, and it's really hard to hear that the whole time. So I think at times those coaches can only last so long. So I feel like with Tortorella, he's been that way and it's demanding. So it'll be interesting to see how it bounces back, especially after a bad year.
Yeah, and certainly I think when you look at Scott Laughton, I think there's a lot of pressure, but the fact that here he is, 8 games in, he's pointless. It can't get much worse, could it? Right? I think that's a good benefit.
It can. Hopefully tonight is, just that familiarity of playing that team will be good for him because he's a guy that they really could use a little shot in the arm here as they get going, especially it's game 9 now tonight. That's 8. So you're at a point where you need to settle in. And again, it's not just his play. It's like playing with your line mates and finding the right rhythm, which is always so important.
Yeah, and definitely. I think you look at this one too from the Leafs perspective. I don't know how to feel about it because the Flyers are down and out and they've been struggling. And we just talked about the power play with Hartsey, but I think you just got to continue to play your game. And I'm just looking at the response as well, Huts, after what we saw in Nashville on Saturday night, right?
Yeah, 100%. I think this is going to be an all-out team response, right, too. And I think where I would compare this game is the response we saw after the Florida and Ottawa losses, how they came out against Calgary. I would assume the same thing because he set the tone early in that practice to be like, hey, this was a BS effort in Nashville. Now it's time to bounce back.
The following interview is brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers. Get custom ring building, delivered in less than 4 weeks with the Charm Masterpiece program and an unbeatable pricing policy. Charm Diamond Centers is proudly Canadian owned and operated since 1972. With more than 85 locations across the country through Charm and their sister brands. For more information, go to charmdiamondcenters.com as we bring in guest 2 of 2 on today's podcast. It's American actor and big-time Philadelphia Flyers fan. It is David Boreanaz. DB, what's going on, buddy? How are you?
Can you guys hear me?
Oh, yeah.
We got you. How you been?
Oh, we're connected, man. It's the first time I've done a YouTube kind of connection here.
Yeah.
Cool.
How you been?
I'm good, man. I'm great. Wish my Flyers were doing better, but...
We just had Scott Hartnell on. What do you remember about him?
Scotty's great, man. Last time I saw him was at the Super Bowl. The Eagles were up, and my son came back with a beer. Next thing I know, I look over, and there's Hartnell hugging my son with a high beer high, man, and everything was toasting. It was fantastic. So Scotty's a great guy, great soul. He's got it together. Very smart, too. Very smart hockey player and very knowledgeable in the world of, what makes a good hockey club tick, in my view. Just a great guy. And, I was, speaking of Hartnell, talking to Steve Coetzee last week, too. He's a really good friend of mine. And, he's been retired for a year now. And we were just kind of airing our frustrations, so to speak, out in the Philadelphia Flyers organization. And, someone who bleeds orange and black and, was really committed to spreading Ed Snyder's charitable contributions and what he did for the game. He was a very unique man. And I could say that he definitely is probably not rolling in his grave, but he's probably the ghost of Ed Snyder's wearing a Rangers jersey and walking around the streets of Philadelphia pissed off.
Yeah, I think understandable. Everyone, as a former Flyer, I don't know if you know that, David. I did a 1-game emergency backup. Brian Boucher, the year you guys went to the Cup, lost to the Hawks, I backed up 1 game. So I'd always joke around with Laviolette when I would see him that I was like the piece they needed to get to the Cup final that year. So I was a fly on the wall for 1 game, which was always funny. But I always loved playing in Philly. I played a ton of games there, especially when I was in Buffalo, and I bounced around in my career. I spent 10 years in the NHL. That was a rink where I would just have a lot of fun because I knew I was going to get it, right? As the goalie, it was going to be pressure on me. They were going to be hard. Is it still that feeling, tonight, obviously it's in Toronto, but what's it like your matchup right now as a Flyers fan going against the Leafs? Scott Laughton is now a Leaf. What are your feelings, headed into this game and, I guess late in the season here?
Well, when you lose a player like Scott Laughton, you pretty much lose a big part of your locker room. I mean, here's a guy who's just down-to-earth, character-driven guy, and he's just got a lot of love for the game, and he works so hard on the ice. I know his transition into Toronto must be very unique for him. Just a phenomenal player. He will definitely leave it all on the ice. But when a player like that leaves an organization, especially in Philadelphia, you lose a lot of that heart that's there, that's already been gone for quite some time, in my opinion. I wish him the best of best, and I hope that he can help contribute to the Leafs and put them over the hump that you guys so desperately need to get into the playoffs, have a deep run, and make it to the Cup this year. So, I'm rooting for him in a lot of ways. But it's when you see a player like that go and what he's done for the city of Philadelphia, it's definitely tough for sure.
What made him so likable? Like, he was a fan favorite there, right?
Yeah, and he just was a hardworking guy on the ice, and he was so personable off the ice. And like I said, hockey is a very unique sport. I think compared to all the other sports, all these players are just, most of them are so down to earth and humbled. They play such a hard game, and what I love about the hockey community is that they really are there for you, regardless of what you're going through in life, and that's what I love so much about the game. And from someone who's on the outside who just plays pickup, hockey, and has worked with the Flyers on many events. You just kind of you love that camaraderie, and Lots just brought that, to the locker room, on the ice, and he just was one of those staple figures, and he'll always go down as a Flyer.
Yeah, and he's, I think he embodies what you want to be in a hockey player and a teammate, and what becomes of it. Something, you touched on, right? I think that's so important. And another player who played for Philly, Anthony Stolarz. Obviously, he's taken a different path, right? Similar to my path, right? He was a backup. He bounced around, and now he's really cutting his teeth and becoming the guy. Like, what is your takeaway about his development, like when he was with the Flyers to now?
Wow. I mean, Stoley, the goalie, he came out and he played for Philadelphia. He was right off the bat very impressive. Had the Stoley, the goalie, kind of emblem going on, and they loved him in Philadelphia. And it just seems as though it just kind of didn't happen for him in Philadelphia. He just went on, and I remember at the facility one time being there, and he wasn't with the Flyers organization anymore. Would he be back in New Jersey in Voorhees, the training facility? And I was working out one day there, and he was there, and I was just impressed because it was Stoley, the goalie. I'm very happy for him and his development. I don't know too much as far as how he is doing right now, but again, a player that was just kind of faded out of Philadelphia. And usually some of these players that fade out of Philadelphia go on and have pretty successful careers with other teams. So I guess that just happened. And unfortunately, we don't have that goalie right now. So that's another tough pill to swallow.
It is. And then Stoley's had a great year, of course, backing up last year in Florida's Cup run behind Sergei Bobrovsky. And now he's turned more into like a 1A, 1B type guy. He's been awesome. Speaking of awesome, a guy who hosts this show very often, Jay Rosehill. Do you remember him in a Flyers jersey?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. It was, talking about, affiliated with you guys throughout the years is, it's been quite a trip, being on my show, and we just wrapped out last year. The show's, you can still check it out on Paramount Plus, but you guys have kind of been my anchor to a lot of the hockey text world. You text me, it's whatever, if the Flyers are playing, if they're doing good, if they're doing bad. So yeah, just to ride that kind of wave with y'all has been fantastic.
And another guy, we're just, making those ties, right, between the Leafs, Flyers. Craig Berube, a guy I got to play with.
I love Chief.
Right. Like we're talking about like a team that is known for being soft come playoff time, a team that is known for, not being there. What is Chief going to do? And what have you seen him do when you were watching him, like the way he coached with Philadelphia?
Wow. What a guy. We were upset that we lost him. That was quite a brutal kind of loss for us. Man, it's so tragic in Philadelphia. You have these great coaches and players, and then they leave and they go on and they're so successful. What I love about Chief, he's just hard-nosed hockey. He really understands a hockey player. Right, he can identify it, and he's strong-willed. He's tough with his own presence. Like his energy alone on the bench, you just feel that energy of intensity, but not overwhelming intensity. Like he expects the most of you. He expects you to show up, be on time, work hard on the ice, do what you need to do, win the battles. And his players respond to his coaching. And hey, it's a hell of a pickup for Toronto. I think you guys, we're struggling with some coaches in some seasons, and I think he really anchors that for you all in Toronto. But great guy. Spent some nights with him, having a beer here and there, and I just really love talking hockey with him. And very down to earth guy. So I just love Chief and what he's done.
Love the style and brand too, and I think it's unique in this conversation too that the way Philadelphia embodies the game and how they want to play every year. It's just that gritty type style, and that's what we're looking for in Toronto. And that's why I think there's a part of me that thinks that Berube could be the guy to extract that out of this team come the Stanley Cup playoffs, because that's been the big thing with this Leafs team, David, in the past, is that they're sort of soft. And can't get in the dirty areas in the playoffs.
Yeah, hey, look, and hopefully he can give that to you and infuse that into some of your players there. I think Philadelphia has lost that grit and has lost that kind of tempo, so to speak. They need so much offensively. Philadelphia was always dominant with a pure center down the middle. Like, that was Philadelphia's game. Now you go to the corners and, they'll hand you a menu and a wine maker in these days. They let guys sniff on the blue line, and they're just not competitive hockey players. There are a few that I kind of like. I like Sealer. I think Paling's game is kind of cool. But they need defensemen. They need a center. They need a goalie. They need a lot. And it's just hard to watch an organization be drained. I got to be careful what I say here because, I love the city of Philadelphia. I love the pride that it has taken on, but it's that whole new era of a new orange. I'm not seeing it, and it's hard to watch that. So changes I feel have to happen. I think Torts is a great coach. I think that it just wears thin on the players after a while. I mean, it's tough. I mean, he's hard and expects a lot. He's going to coach the way he's going to coach, and that, I respect that completely. But I think there comes a time when the players just stop responding to that type of kind of energy that's coming at them. I was talking to Jim Hiller a couple of weeks back. We did a celebrity skate thing for all the fire victims out here that lost their homes. And it was a great turnout. And I've never met a coach. I met this coach was just fantastic. I was really taken in by just the way he, where he was from and how he approaches the game and, how he goes to the locker room. And he's very much like him because I asked him, like, do you go in and rally your troops before they go out? Like, how do you get under their skin? He's like, I don't really think about it too much. It could be like a song I listen to on the way into the game. But I allow the energy to dictate what I'm going to say to them. And I think that's a really interesting way of motivating your players to get the best out of them. And you see what the Kings are doing this year. I mean, I really feel the Kings are in a prime position to be in the finals this year, the Cup finals, just with the way their players are playing. Defensively, they got the goalie and they got the coach. And they're a surprising team this year. And I really like them in the West. But Philly has a long way to go. They have a long, long way to go, man. And it's hard to watch.
Yeah, no, I feel you. And some of the coaches I played for, I mentioned it earlier, played for Laviolette in Nashville. And like sometimes that energy, it's hard to match every single day, right? Like you need to be able to read players and everyone responds differently. For me, as long as you don't say Fedotov, because I'm not a big fan. And I hate how we, as goalies, like how I had to cut my teeth and we get these guys from overseas and they just get keys to the castle, get the contract. Who would you play if you had to be an NHL player? Like you're doing a movie, what guy would you want to choose to play that role? Like, who's the guy?
Well, attitude-wise, man, Bernsey, it just came to mind. I just had dinner with him last week, and he's just a great guy as far as his strength and his structure is concerned. I'd have to lose my front teeth, that's for sure. But I don't know how the hell he would do that. I love his grit and just the way his everlasting run in the NHL and how he came into the league and how he was a forward and then become a defenseman. And, there's another guy who I resemble. I think he plays for the St. Louis Blues. And I think it might be Biaski. Is that his name? I don't know. But he kind of looks familiar to me as far as looks is concerned. But there was some talk a few years back about doing the Broad Street Bullies film. Like I know Dave Schultz's son wrote a screenplay. He sent it to me, and then it went through another turnaround with another phase of a director, and things that's a tough one to get off the board because you got to get the rights to all the players. So if one disagrees and the other two are in, then you're not going to be able to make this film. So, but I like Bernsey's grit, determination. I always loved Ron Hextall, his play. I'd love to play Hexy. I mean, I think he's one of my favorite players growing up and watching him hold that crease and the way he dominated and, the way he went after goalies and he didn't take any shit. If anybody was in his crease, man, he would make it known like you're not messing with him. But here's a guy who, I think he's from Manitoba, or I think he's from Manitoba.
Yeah.
So what do you do in the summertime? He's like, yeah, I bear hunt, man. You got to be patient for these types of guys, man. But look, the grit of Philadelphia is lost, and Jeremy Roenick, another great guy, great player, played for the Flyers. I love Jeremy. I saw him a couple weeks ago at this event, and just so down to earth, man. It's funny. I was watching also, talking about goalies. This whole call that happened last night with the Islanders, man. That's a big loss, man. And a lot of people don't see, like, when you're fighting for that position, that 1 point can make a huge difference, and because it's so close in the East, right? And the way Patrick Waugh, like his post game, like being a goalie, is like, yeah, well, you know what? Looks like the goalie pushed him out of the crease, man. So I don't know what the rule really is. I think that's always been this kind of argument. Like, what's the crease? What does it mean? Like, what's the rule? And if Toronto can't overrule it, then why do we have it? It's fascinating what's going on with that rule.
Yeah, and it's a great reminder too. And Huts, I give him shit all the time, and I know you're not from this era specifically, but goalies back then cut from a different cloth. They're so soft now. They're so soft. It's a different game. David, before we let you go, I'm a big fan of SEAL Team. I love the fact that you had those little Flyers nuggets through all the seasons of the show. 8 years of playing a Navy SEAL. What was that experience like, and how much of a toll did that play on your body, man?
That's a lot. We wrapped out last end of May in Colombia. We shot there, and I felt this huge weight come off my shoulders of leading the show. And great experience, very humbling, very fortunate to play that type of a role. We shot it in a very authentic kind of way. So you're always kind of with the SEALs and the special operators. You're not really losing their point of view, but it really hit home for a lot of veterans that are suffering from PTS, TBI, and we're able to shine a lot of light in those dark areas, and it's helped out so many people. And so proud of the show. It was one of the biggest accomplishments as far as achieving physically and mentally to play this character. So yeah, I'm post healing right now. I did the stem cell thing in certain areas. It's going well. I highly recommend it. I feel a lot stronger right now, and I have some really cool, exciting things and opportunities coming my way. So I just got to get the body and the mind ready, and that's where I'm at. And I feel really much better from where I was last year. That's for sure.
Great to hear. You're the best. It's been awesome catching up with you. Enjoy the game tonight. We'll talk soon. Okay.
Definitely, bud. Cheers to all you guys, man.
Take care. See ya, bud. That's David Boreanaz. Make sure you can go check out SEAL Team still. What a phenomenal show. One of my favorites. Just the camera work, the scenes, everything was great. The acting, phenomenal. So make sure you check that out. And you talk about super fans. David Boreanaz is the Philadelphia Flyers, and a great breakdown there. Lives in Los Angeles, and a big Brent Burns guy. Huge Brent Burns
I love
guy.
it. Oh, he's going to get the snakes and stuff too. The farm, he's got everything. Burnsy's a great dude, and what a great character. And you can tell how much he cares, right? Honestly, just his breakdown of what he sees and where it's at. And it's got to be hard too, right? Because this is a team that was, on the cusp of getting in and making the playoffs to this season, and what's gone on, and the whole losing Carter Hart. You kind of had your goalie of the future. It's been a lot of shortcomings in Philadelphia, but it's a team that I love to pull for too.
It is. And final thoughts, Leafs Flyers tonight. Obviously a big one for the Maple Leafs, not to dispel DB and what he's saying about the Flyers, but we need this one badly, especially with the three-game California trip coming up and everything we've talked about the last couple weeks. Like, it's amazing the ups and downs of this Maple Leafs team. But you look at the standings; they got 2 games still to play with the with Florida, and they got the game in hand, and they're 2 points back. And right now, 2 points ahead of Tampa as well in the standings. So, like, first in the division, Huts, it's right there for this Maple Leafs team.
It is. It's so close. And again, I think like what Hartnell said is so important too, to try to avoid that heavy first round matchup, right? The matchup they've been seeing for so many years, whether it was Boston or whatever. I know we go back to the, they played Montreal and they lost that one, right? But they're also up 3-1 in that series. I think you'd rather take your chances on that end than having a really tough first round opponent. So I expect them to be on the gas tonight. I think they're going to come out flying because this is a huge matchup, especially the way that Chiefs set the tone at practice the other day. That it was unacceptable the way that Nashville went, Nick.
What'd you think of that, by the way? We talked about it a bit with Hartsey before, just Chief going in there at practice following a crap loss. That happens from time to time, I guess.
Yeah, for sure, right? It's one of those things I think you have to do it, right? I think if you do it all the time, you lose the room and it doesn't have the same effect. So it's strategic in that sense. And for this Toronto team, you got to understand what's in front of you, right? I think just keeping that present, right? Don't let this slip away, because it is going to be important to be playing the right style of hockey here as we get closer to playoffs.
And again, just some lineup notes as we wrap. Pontus Holmberg expected to be the healthy scratch in this game, which means David Kampf, Calle Yarncroke both in the lineup. And Anthony Stolarz, the former Philadelphia Flyers, set to start this game as Scott Laughton plays his former team for the very first time. Breaking news coming in from Bet365, where every nail-biting overtime win is a barn burner. Every face-off, hat-trick, power play, shot on goal, penalty shot, and every suspenseful minute in between is amazing. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. An official partner of the NHL. Download the Bet365 app and use the code NATION. That's NATION, NATION, to get in on the game. Must be 19 or older, Ontario only. Please play responsibly. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, visit ConnexOntario.ca. I said this yesterday. I'm playing Scott Laughton, whether it's a point, an assist, a goal. I'm all over the Laughton revenge game narrative. How about you?
I feel like you're pretty solid in that revenge game area, too. I feel like it does hit a lot.
Well, dude, remember we did the show the other night, and I said, we were talking about it, and I said, I liked Laughton to score, and then he scores, and that's the boys. I was going nuts, and then I see them go to the timekeeper there, and I'm like, it's coming back. Like, what the fuck, you know?
There it goes down the drain. I think the puck line tonight for sure. I think they come out, they score first. I think they're buzzing. That's what I would be taking tonight. I like the Leafs in regulation, and I like them to score first tonight because I think they're just going to answer the bell right away.
Definitely. So lastly, just like to thank our guests today. We had a doubleheader, Scott Hartnell and David Boreanaz for dropping by. Also, as mentioned off the top of the show, Stephen Ellis put out a video for us here on YouTube, the 411 on Luke Hames, who the Leafs signed as an NCAA free agent center out of Dartmouth. So make sure you go check that out. Huts, excellent job today. Enjoy the game. We'll talk soon, bud.
Sounds good. Thanks, Nicky.
Feel better. Rest up. Get some H2O in that system too, okay? Maybe some pre-workout, whatever you need.
Yeah, hopefully I have a voice next time I come on. I think I'm on Friday. I'm not sure, but hopefully my voice is back by then.
We'll have to check the schedule, but very likely there's a potential Carter Hutton could be my co-host coming up on Friday. Folks in the chat, we love you guys. You guys know that by now. At the Leafs Nation 401, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Leafs Morning Take, wherever you find your podcast. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review, and don't forget to visit theleafsnation.com. Thank you to producer Vic. For Carter Hutton, I'm Nick Alberga. David Pagnotta in the saddle tomorrow. We'll talk then. Take care. Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long-form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Roseau. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.